Stevie, you called forth your mother. She is not with us yet, as you full well know. I'll do it again.
Yeah.
Stevie, you called forth your mother. She is not with us yet, as you full well know.
Okay, and what I'd like to do is know a little bit about how your background, how you got into comics and your history and stuff like that. You want to?
Okay. I lie a lot now.
No, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, well, we always drew. As a matter of fact, when I was a little kid, I've said this in interviews, I thought everybody drew. Because everyone in my house drew. Even my mother would draw little fashion things and stuff. Then we never had a lack of paper, my father would tell us, don't draw on the other side, only one side. Thinking it could be reproduced. No, but we always were drawing, and it really kept the house quite civilized, because we were pretty quiet kids. We were pretty quiet kids, you know. And my brother and father were very patient with me because I was the youngest, but they enjoyed gearing me into things, you know, like if
youngest out of how many people?
Oh, my mother, my father, and my brother and I, 4 in the household. 4. So it was quite civilized. And of course, when I started in school, all the nuns had me drawing on everybody's bulletin board for the holidays because it turned out so nice. And also, I didn't have to do the work at the desk. I was going from class to class doing these ridiculous drawings. And school was fun. I like reading, and I enjoyed learning stuff. I wasn't a problem. As a matter of fact, I was too lazy to learn to read in the 3rd grade, and I was left back, which was the best thing that ever happened to me, because then I was a little older for the grade, and I started being an honor student from that moment on, which was good. You know, I applied myself. I was just playing around, you know. So, but I enjoyed school, and as you can see, I like reading. I've been getting rid of some of my books because as I'm getting older, what the heck am I going to do with them all? And moving here was a nightmare with all that. I've gotten rid of. I still have some of the whole. But anyway. You want to start traveling light, because you never know, you know. If like I have one bad eye, and if I get both bad eyes, then I'm not going to read anyway. So I'd like to make sure they go to the family and stuff like that. And what else? I enjoyed comics. I didn't get in comics because I was in love with comics. It was just a money-making thing. My brother needed a colorist. They needed a colorist for Harvey Kurtzman's war books, and they wanted authenticity and accuracy. And because I drew and I respected the artwork, and those comics were real, as you know, drawn so well, and the way I colored, they loved it, you know, because in the old days the coloring was done up in Chemical Color in Bridgeport, where they made the mats.
You sit up.
Oh, he's a brute.
Please come over here. Thank you.
She's
I'm
so
going to cut
obedient.
that. She keeps looking over at you. And this way she can look at the camera.
You know, I didn't even know didn't even realize the camera was on. I was talking to you guys.
No, that's fun. No,
Okay.
I'm just saying, but this way it'll turn out better. That's all. I'm going to cut this part out. So go ahead.
Okay.
But you mentioned some stuff about in that article, like drawing biblical stories and stuff like that. And you also mentioned that everybody in your family drew on envelopes.
Oh yeah, when my
You need to
brother
move
was
over
in the
here.
service,
And not interrupt anymore.
they had not email, V-mail they called it, V-mail. And my brother, instead of sitting and writing letters to everybody, because everybody wanted to hear from him, he would draw a picture on the V-mails. So the originals never came to us, but the duplicates that they would make, and everybody would get these drawings of him sitting in a bunker, or him sitting, you know, doing something. A coconut fell on his helmet when he was reading a book. I mean, funny things like that. And what am I talking about that for? Anyway, and I would send him drawings. You know, I would draw for him, and I'd send letters to him. And my father would draw on envelopes. And I think there's some article about John where they duplicated some of these that were left, you know. And then when my brother's best friend went to England, he was 4F, he had heart trouble, but he worked as a speech writer, and he even wrote a speech for Churchill. We were so proud of him. And he was really a gifted guy. And I used to draw pictures for him, in his envelope. And they used to get a kick out of it, because I was a little snotty kid, hearing boldly writing on anything. And we always felt that we could draw, we were never put down and never really, don't waste your time or anything, because we all liked it. And my mother was quite talented. Like I said, she designed clothes and stuff like that. So, upbringing, I didn't know I was any different. And that was good, But then I found out that I could use this sometimes to get little favors of not doing my homework or something. I do a poster for school and use it when you can. So, but and then the working job, they needed a colorist. Harvey Kurtzman wanted his books just right, and his war stories were quite accurate. So. They tried me out, and Harvey was delighted. He says, "She doesn't make a yellow moon." That was his first comment. Everybody puts the moon in yellow, and I left it, well, the moon is white usually, so leave it. And they respected my stuff, and they liked it. And so I became the official EC colorist, which meant the whole line I was doing. And the horror books were so much fun. It was so icky. But because it was fun, we weren't being sadistical. It was almost so bizarre and so hideous that it was comical. You get to a certain point where you laugh at stuff. It's so horrible, So, but that was the EC bit. And then when they got into Mad Men, when the Comics Code came along, comics, as you know, were almost obliterated. You couldn't have a Western gun going off on a cowboy shooting a gun on the cover. Couldn't have it. So what do? People posing, tipping their hats. So comics really went into the doldrums. So EC just had the black and white books. They figured they'd do black and white books rather than comics. So then Stan hired me, which was the first run with him, and then comics really hit a low. And I got a job at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. A friend of mine was in the Public Information Department, and I produced a comic book because they were beginning to start coding checks, and people are very funny about their money, and if they see numbers on the bottom of a check, they don't know whether somebody can read how much money they have in the bank, how much with their whatever personal information. They didn't know what these numbers were. So they put out a comic from the Federal Reserve showing that these are for routing. Sometimes it would take 4 days for a check to clear from New York to San Francisco. And this way, electronically, they could zing, 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 and money started to move faster. So that's why they had to put those coded things on, which has improved immensely and other things too, but this was in the 50s, so that's what I did there. And then I got hired away from them. I did a film strip for this educational, I forget the name of it, on how checks flow through the economy, and that was the bank. I forget what I did. I did a film strip for this for the school system, and I worked for them a while, and then they didn't have any more projects. They weren't very good businessmen, so I went back to Stan Lee, and greeted me with open arms because the books were beginning to take off, and I was there for the rest of my career.
Is that when you worked with Flo and Herb Trimpe?
No, that was later. We had, no, that was right. That's right. When I went back that time, that's when, yeah. So.
You want to tell me the famous story about the big dollar bill or $100 bill or whatever it was?
Oh, yeah.
The FBI came in and talked to you?
Yes.
Could you tell us the story? I'd love to hear it.
Gee, it was so long ago. Yeah, they confiscated it, and it didn't even look like the whole thing, I mean, it wasn't, you could never pass it as a counterfeit, and it was this big, and we made it, and then we were cutting it up, so 10% goes here, 5%, 30%, so I had the master one, and then we would chop it up, and I was thinking, I didn't even I wish I had kept it. I forget who I put in there, but it wasn't Washington.